I remember the moment clearly because moments like this always feel less like a press release and more like a quiet click in the machinery of history. The kind of click you only hear if you've spent years listening to systems instead of slogans. And when people say the Pentagon or the Department of Defense, or even the old phrase Department of War, what they really mean is an enormous distributed intelligence problem that spans humans, machines, incentives, fear, responsibility, and time. And I've always been obsessed with intelligence, not just artificial intelligence, but intelligence as a property of civilizations. So when xAI and Grok began, it wasn't about building a chatbot or winning a benchmark. It was about building a system that could reason about reality, about the universe as it actually is, with fewer layers of ideological distortion. And when the people running GenAI.mil came to us, the conversation wasn't flashy, it wasn't about hype, it was about reliability, traceability, robustness under stress, and whether an AI system could help decision makers understand complex situations faster without pretending to replace human judgment. Because that's the part that always gets misunderstood. This isn't about handing over the keys to a machine, it's about giving humans better instruments. Like going from a sextant to GPS. And Grok was designed from the beginning to ask uncomfortable questions, to challenge assumptions, to surface edge cases. And that's exactly what high-stakes environments require, especially in defense where ambiguity is the default state and bad information can be more dangerous than no information at all. So, integrating Grok models into GenAI.mil wasn't a sudden leap, it was an inevitability born from years of work on alignment, security, and interpretability. Because if you're going to deploy AI in environments where lives and global stability are at stake, you can't treat it like a toy or a marketing experiment. You have to treat it like an aircraft or a reactor, something engineered with paranoia and humility. And I know people like to reduce everything I do to some narrative about power or ego, but the truth is simpler and more uncomfortable. Advanced AI is coming whether we like it or not. And the question is whether it's built and deployed by organizations that at least attempt to understand its consequences. And the US defense apparatus, for all its flaws, understands risk management at a scale few others do, which is why the integration focused on constrained use cases, secure environments, red teaming, audit logs, and the idea that Grok isn't there to decide, it's there to illuminate, to compress vast oceans of data into something a human mind can actually reason about under pressure. And when people hear military AI partnership, they imagine science fiction scenarios, autonomous weapons, Skynet fantasies. But the reality is far more procedural and frankly, more important. It's about logistics, planning, anomaly detection, understanding supply chains, modeling second-order effects, and giving commanders and analysts a clearer picture of what's happening and what might happen next. And I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. The most dangerous thing is not AI that's too powerful, it's AI that's powerful and opaque. So Grok's role inside GenAI.mil is shaped by that philosophy, transparency where possible, uncertainty, estimates, explicit acknowledgement of what the model doesn't know, and constant human oversight. And I won't pretend there aren't ethical tensions here. There always are, when technology intersects with force. But opting out doesn't stop progress. It just hands it to someone else, possibly with fewer scruples and worse engineering. So my view has always been that responsible participation is better than moral grandstanding from the sidelines. And when I look at this collaboration, I don't see a finish line, I see an early checkpoint, a test of whether advanced AI can be integrated into critical institutions without eroding accountability, without becoming a black box oracle, and without accelerating us toward outcomes we don't fully understand. And maybe that sounds cautious for someone people think of as reckless, but if you've ever built rockets or cars or large-scale AI systems, you learn quickly that reality is unforgiving, and the only way forward is to respect it, question it, and design for failure as much as success. And that's ultimately what this story is about. Not Grok, not xAI, not even the Pentagon, but whether we as a civilization can wield increasingly powerful intelligence tools without losing our own. And this partnership is one small, imperfect, but necessary experiment in finding out whether that's possible. After the headlines fade and people move on to the next controversy, the real work begins. And this is the phase most people never see, where integration isn't about announcements, but about friction, about discovering all the ways reality resists clean abstractions. And I remember sitting with engineers and defense analysts realizing that the hardest problem wasn't making Grok smart, it was making Grok disciplined, because intelligence without discipline in a military context is just noise amplified at scale. So we spent an enormous amount of time on constraints, guardrails, domain separation, making sure the model understood not just what it could answer, but what it must refuse to answer. And that's a subtle thing, because refusal itself has to be intelligible and logged and reviewable. Otherwise, it becomes another opaque behavior. And one thing I kept repeating was that this system should feel less like an oracle and more like an incredibly fast, brutally honest staff officer who cites sources, flags uncertainty, and never pretends confidence it doesn't have. And that's harder than it sounds, because most AI systems are rewarded for sounding confident, not for being correct under ambiguity. And defense decision-making lives almost entirely inside ambiguity, incomplete data, adversarial deception, time pressure, political constraints. So the GenAI.mil environment forced Grok to grow up fast, to operate inside air-gap systems, to respect classification boundaries, to work with fragmented data sets that can't just be scraped or unified the way consumer AI expects. And this forced us to rethink architecture, not in a flashy way, but in a way that prioritizes provenance, auditability, and reversibility, meaning every output can be traced, challenged, and overridden. And I pushed hard on this because I've seen what happens when systems are deployed without a clear off switch. And people forget that the ability to stop is just as important as the ability to act. And philosophically, this collaboration also forced me to confront something uncomfortable, which is that AI alignment isn't a static achievement. It's a continuous process shaped by the environment it's embedded in. And defense environments surface edge cases you will never see in consumer products, cases involving adversarial prompting, deliberate misinformation, conflicting objectives, and moral gray zones where there is no clean answer. And Grok had to be trained not to moralize, not to posture, but to assist humans in reasoning through trade-offs. And that's where I think this effort actually matters beyond the military. Because if we can make AI behave responsibly in the most high-stakes, constrained, adversarial settings imaginable, that sets a precedent for how it can behave everywhere else. And I knew critics will say this is normalization, that it legitimizes militarization of AI. But my counter-argument is that militaries don't disappear because technologists look away. They evolve regardless. And the choice is whether that evolution is guided by engineers who understand the failure modes of AI or by bureaucratic inertia and vendor hype. And I've been very clear internally that this isn't about building weapons that think. It's about building thinking tools for humans who already bear responsibility. And there's a deep difference between those two things, even if headlines collapse them into one phrase. And on a more personal level, this chapter reminded me why I started xAI in the first place, which was a growing frustration with systems optimized for engagement, ideology, or short-term optics rather than truth-seeking, and defense organizations, ironically, are often more honest about uncertainty than consumer platforms because pretending certainty in war gets people killed. So, Grok's role became one of intellectual friction, challenging assumptions, highlighting blind spots, asking, "What if you're wrong?" in a way that's structured and evidence-based. And I think that's the most underappreciated contribution AI can make, not replacing decision makers, but making it harder for them to fool themselves. And as this integration continues, I don't expect perfection. I expect failures, audits, revisions, maybe even public backlash, but that's the cost of doing something real instead of symbolic. And if there's one thing I've learned across rockets, cars, and AI, it's that progress isn't clean. It's iterative, uncomfortable, and often misunderstood, and the only question that matters is whether we're moving towards systems that amplify human wisdom or human recklessness. And this partnership, for all its controversy, is an attempt to tilt the balance towards the former, even knowing there are no guarantees.